That's why they say, fake it till you make it A. And if you play that game, then you just might make a change. Rearrange all the bad to okay. Take the worst I say and turn them to a game. Take the best I say and put them on display. On repeat in your brain till you're feeling no more pain. Never slow yourself down, you can do some more. Push past all the pain and you find a door. Open it up and finally explore everything that you thought you could never do before. And even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Go, go, slow, you can still go. Go, there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace. This is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose. Let's go. Thoughts can keep you down, pushing deep until you drown, or they can keep you up strong, focused on the now. Glass half full, or has it been emptied out? Well, that's all up to you and your mind. Do you doubt anything, everything, not a thing? Make my thoughts work for me, manifest what I need, what I want, what I see. I could be anything, I attract all the things that I see. I believe I'll achieve as I breathe in and out again and again. I don't doubt, I sit and I plan, and I found out that I can execute if I'm driven, if I listen, if I learn all the wisdom. Read some books, something written, watch the best. Teach a system, I invest, never hidden, I ain't scared. Ain't no chicken, I take dares. I'll be winning, you get back what you're giving. Find the reason that you're living, what you're good at, all your gifts and what you love. Take a risk and find out what you've been missing. Yeah.
All right. Happy Thursday morning to everyone in the ABL. I am here with Cal as always. And Cal, I got to say, as we start the show, I was watching. I'm sure you probably potentially can't see it, but we already have 5 people watching in the pre-show, which is a new record for us. So I think that means that today might be a lot of fun.
Huge. Love that. But I will say one thing. We are never pushing the show back again, because I think God punished me for having to push it back. On Tuesday, I live on the Illinois side of the Mississippi, and right across on the Iowa side, there was a tornado that hit.
Yep.
Then Wednesday, going to St. Louis for a concert to see Kendrick Lamar. And there were like an hour prior before we arrived, another tornado hit there.
Wild.
So back-to-back days, tornadoes. It's a sign from God. Never postpone the pod. And I will live by that for the rest of my days.
I mean, it just, even for the fact that like postponing the pod meant that we have like 50 other trades we have to talk about as well.
That as well. I mean, that's another punishment, is having to deal with these guys.
In and of itself. So, yeah, we got obviously a lot that we're going to go through. Our plan, just so everyone's kind of aware, not to make this like a 5-hour podcast, is we have kind of a sheet that Cal graciously put together and organized. It looks awesome. We kind of have a breakdown of buyers and sellers that we'll probably reference a decent amount as we kind of talk through these trades. And then we just kind of have a Google sheet of every single trade as well. So we're going to kind of work through it. Some trades we'll talk about more than others. I don't know that maybe we'll mention every trade, but we don't necessarily need to talk about every trade. We can just give a little bit of insights and kind of just go from there. But outside of that, I'm going to switch the screen here.
Yeah, I did a similar sheet last year. I will say one thing, that last year I took the time and I went through and I was able to manually put in like contract, dollar amount, and prospect rank. I spent too much time on the buyers and sellers to add the little logos in that I didn't have time for everything else. So some things are more important than others.
Yep.
And the logos are more important. So
and
sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. Because I mean, we can easily look them up. That's much easier to look up than having to try and reference buyers and sellers every time. So, so that's great. So We'll start off. We obviously had a bunch of trades come through, kind of like right at 11 or around 11, that I think are interesting. So, do you kind of want? Well, now that I'm looking through this, is the Schultz trade? There it is. It's down there. I was gonna say, okay, so that didn't happen until the morning. Okay, cool. So yeah,
Yep.
so we'll just kind of start at the top and maybe go back and forth as we talk about this kind of stuff. Or actually, maybe it's easier if I just mention it and then we'll get
Sure.
your take on it and then we'll talk from there. Does that work for you?
Sure, absolutely.
Cool. So first trade, not really anything massive. I guess Moncada going to the Tigers. And I guess Farmer too, multi-eligible guy, plays a decent amount. John's obviously going for it. Kevin on the Rays, potentially a decent return. Ewing being a prospect, Monasterio kind of getting called up and down. Thoughts there?
Yep. Well, Kevin was quick on the trigger, which is weird because he was probably one of the best teams to be dumping.
Yeah.
Had a shot at a wild card spot, didn't really want it, as he had said. It's just like a consolation prize at 8th place in the AL division or AL, league is not really going to do much for him.
Yep.
So totally get that. But no, this is John's just making moves for it looks like just solid depth bat. I know Moncada's hurt; he'll probably be a starter when he comes back.
Yep.
So John is gearing up for a deep postseason run, and we kind of see later that this must have been some type of foreshadowing into the talks later, which we'll get into that.
Yep.
But yeah, clearly these two teams were pretty friendly beforehand, and probably led to some other things down the line.
I would imagine so.
Yep.
I think your trade interesting with Pratt and Torque. What was the thought behind getting Torkelson? And I don't know, maybe you want to talk about like your decision to like pull the trigger and kind of go for it too.
Well, I mean, I think I kind of discussed part of it with you, but it's like,
yep.
I felt confident that if I give up the specs, I can replenish the specs. I can't replenish the 2025s that I have that are expiring that were actually doing well for me. Granted, it's not like I have a stellar lineup anyways. I have like a few wins. So it's not like a very great spot to be in. And then, of course, what happened on losing to Jeff and Evan was not ideal either. That was just a complete heartbreaker, but besides the point. Now, as far as Torque, though, the first base market seemed to be cornered mainly by Evan with Pete Alonso. And I was trying to zig while others were zagging. And so I hit up Kevin for Torque, and sure. Kevin said as much. That's like, I'm waiting on these guys. I have Acuna, so I'm waiting on Judge, and I got Torque, so I'm waiting on Alonso. So Evan was holding up the market a little bit.
Yep.
So I was trying to sweeten it a little bit because I thought the price was going to go up. Like the wire, the price of the brick going up.
Yeah.
So I already paid a pretty dear price, I think, with Pratt anyways.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty expensive as it was. But I also thought that if Dylan or if Josh gets on the horn, I'm kind of hosed. So it was probably a desperate move already off the jump. But I still got compared to Vientos, who's now hurt, by the way.
Yep.
I think it's a huge upgrade.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with how well he's playing, obviously, how well Detroit is playing themselves, right? I think that's definitely a good get. And I think interesting to your point as well about just the AL West in general. I think the fact that a lot of teams are dealing and buying players and stuff makes that division incredibly exciting. Certainly way more exciting than it was a week ago before everyone was buying.
Especially previous tier list.
Exactly. 100%. Exactly. And so I think like even this next trade where Josh went to Kevin and ended up moving Cameron and a first for Stowers and Lugo, which to me is interesting. I had some conversations with Josh around Cameron as well. He obviously ended up going a different direction, but I think a good trade certainly for him. I think potentially selling Cameron high, assuming he kind of comes back down to earth eventually. But I think honestly, in my opinion, it's a really good gamble on Kevin's end to not only get Cameron, but just potentially a longer term keeping starting pitcher, but then also a first round pick. And Lugo's good, right? Don't get me wrong. And Stowers is having, the year of his life this year. So Josh is getting good pieces too. But I think that's a really good get for Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still kind of favor it a little slightly with Josh. I don't know on Cameron's part, but if Josh is gearing up for kind of going into next year, getting a cheap Stowers is pretty huge.
Yeah.
And if he's wanting to get this run done as well in the now, it's also huge to get a Lugo compared with Stowers. But I guess it kind of depends on what happens with the first round pick. I like Noah Cameron a lot, but not like not wipeout stuff where he's going to be racking up a ton of points. I don't know if what the run he's on is luck based or not, because like I said, it's not like total strike him out, throw him out stuff. It's just he's just getting innings through, which this league loves innings. But yeah, I still think it's a good deal for both sides. But for what Josh is trying to accomplish, I think it's a great deal.
Yeah, and we'll obviously talk more about Seattle in a little while, but he's in a good spot. I think for sure he added some good pieces out there too to compete with, and really, honestly, maybe not even compete, but to keep up with your moves and the rest of the AL West as well. Next one of my favorite prospects right now, Sloan.
Same.
Getting moved. I think he's got a lot of potential. But Lenny moving him to, not surprisingly, Steve loving a starting pitching prospect like Sloan. So he gets him, and then Lee. And I don't know much about. I'm assuming it's Michael Corrit, although maybe they pronounce it Michael. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on that one?
Getting Sloan, huge get for the Orioles, and it's terrifying that Steve also sees the same thing. It's kind of like that 6'5", 220 build is like a skinnier Tommy White, and especially with the type of offering he has with that elite mid-90s fastball, and then he's got that killer change to go with it. So I personally think Sloan is a phenomenal prospect, and I think a great get. I know you're giving up Lee, which that does hurt a little bit, especially for someone who's controllable. I believe I didn't look at the price point, but obviously I know he's on a first. So at least I think he's been outperforming now. Let's take a look here. Currently on a $17 contract as a first.
Okay.
I mean, it probably keepable, I'd imagine. But no, getting Sloan for that price point, I think is a great get for Steve.
Yeah, it's interesting because Lenny's obviously had some tough luck. He's been kind of bottom of the leaderboard a bunch. So maybe this is his way of kind of doing what you're trying to do, in terms of like, okay, I have these good specs, like what pieces could I possibly move them for that would be more long-term prospects, more keepable players that I could keep for a long time. So good. I think good, balanced trade, nothing special there, but I certainly biased in the Sloan side of it. Trade between myself and Frank Myers. One of the guys I felt like was actually playing pretty well this year, playing maybe over expectations. The only unfortunate part is he's only a center fielder. I think if he had multi-eligibility, that increases his stock dramatically. And I think he's only like $7 or something like that. So based on where he's playing this year, potentially keepable for a year maybe. Especially, he's got the starting job in Houston. But for a third, nothing too crazy there. But certainly, I liked that return for Myers. Next one, some bigger names. Rockies Cardinals. Bichette going to the Cardinals along with a third-round pick from the Rockies. For Blake Mitchell, another prospect that I like a lot. $1 fab and JP Crawford. Thoughts on that one?
I'm trying to pull up the contract data here, but I remember this one kind of puzzling me at the time, mainly because you're not getting that much in points. But I think Crawford's on a cheaper contract, whereas Bichette I don't think is really meeting his contract price.
Bichette's $23 on a first. He's on a first. 3.21 points per game.
Okay, that's probably about market rate. Then
it's a lot better. It's a lot better than what I certainly would have thought.
Yes, I thought Bichette was having a similar year to last year.
Correct.
But apparently, he's doing much better than I thought he was.
Crawford
but still, Crawford, I think if you look at shortstops, he's like 30 points behind Bichette.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I was
so
just
to also give up a spec for like basically a week's injury or on a good week.
Yeah.
I think it's a little surprising, but I get the move. I understand it. It's like I need to get 5% or 10% better at this spot for the deep run. I get it, but giving up the spec along with the chief shortstop, because then you can kind of shoehorn in somebody if you need a depth piece or whatever. Like I'll pay for the expensive guy. It's just different way of constructing their roster. I totally get it though. Just beef up the starters seemed to be the main goal, and it was achieved. I think Allen got a solid deal though.
Well, yeah, and when you're in Jeff's position too, right? Giving up a guy like Mitchell, who I do love. I think he's a really good spec, has a bright future. If you look through Jeff's minors, he's not blinking an eye giving up a guy like Mitchell when he's got everyone else that he has. And so I think it's exactly what you were saying, is he is trying to figure out how he can get from the, he's figuring out, how can I get to the World Series, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can get through the NL potentially, right? If I'm able to kind of, win a coin flip in the playoffs. And then he's like, how am I going to continue to win? How am I going to give myself even a 1% chance more, to get those wins in the postseason? So I think you're 100% right on that, even though I do agree with you that I think value-wise, Allen got a pretty good return in that sense.
Yeah, because I mean, for 30 points less, you get, because Duchette's like what, in the mid 20s or $23, and then Crawford's $11 on a first.
Yep,
that sounds pretty nice for Allen.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
so
just looking at that face value.
Yeah, just looking at that aspect of it, I think it does roll for Allen there. But
agreed.
Yeah, I think for a deep run, you're gonna want Bichette.
Yeah, agreed. Next one here, trade between Jeff and I, actually. He was interested in Jansen. So I ended up sending him Jansen, and he sent me back Hendricks, which essentially was just going to be a drop for him. And I was like, well, I could use an extra relief pitcher, so why not, even though he sucks. Lennon was the really big return that I kind of wanted back.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like a little bit more unknown spec, but man, I love his repertoire. Or you think Lennon
I peruse through the Fangraphs and my MILB trackers, and Lennon is constantly on those lists as far as like is between like K to walk and everything.
Sure.
And he's already, what did you say, AAA recently? Is that where he's at right now?
So yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure it was higher up. I can look real quick, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
But I mean, I'd still think great get for giving up a closer you're not going to be able to use at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good spec to kind of roll with for a while.
Yeah, he's up in AAA right now.
Okay, then yeah, I mean, you got close proximity arm right there, and honestly has some decent stuff to boot. Absolutely love it. So yeah, I think works for Jeff. Needs that closer. This again, it's him optimizing his roster to the highest degree.
Yep, and
he'll pay to do it. So gotta respect that.
Jansen's had a heck of a year this year too, as the closer. He's like a 5-something point per game closer right now. So in any normal year probably would have been someone I hang on to as potentially an option, for just another year to have, so I don't have to pay for a closer right in the auction. But being able to get Lennon, I think, and a little bit of Fab back too, was worth it. So next one, I don't know if you want to call this one a dump or not, depending on how you feel about Gaddis, but Gaddis going to the Rangers for $3 Fab back. I don't know if you have any crazy insights into that one, but I mean, seemed pretty much like just Sam getting a pitcher that potentially could pay off in a role for him.
I wouldn't say it's crazy, but it is a little crazy to give Steve any type of Fab right before DSL hits.
True.
That is a kid in a candy store right there. So yeah, I saw that. I'm like, he's gearing up for DSL. I know it, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. He's probably in the mindset right now where he gets to sell this year. He can just sell and get all the DSL he wants. He doesn't
have to care. He can just put everything into specs. It's fun.
That's great. All right, next one. Another Tigers trade here between the Tigers and Rockies. Tigers got Brendan Donovan, Graham Ashcraft, and the Rockies got Tommy Troy back. Decent spec, and then obviously a couple of drops there too. Thoughts there?
I'm a little biased because I was kind of in the hunt on Donovan, obviously, but so I'm like, I could do a lot better than that. Oh man, but no, Tommy Troy, great prospect. I totally get why I got outbid on it. I think that's very reasonable, honestly. And Ashcraft, just as a throw in, essentially, I think it's a fair deal for John. John definitely gets a lot better, which pisses me off. So getting one of the premier second basemen in baseball right now, a little bit biased, but it's true.
Yeah,
is a solid get for an already pretty great team. And Tommy Troy, great prospect. I really have no qualms with this one.
Yeah, I think I guess Ashcraft's on a 2025 contract too, so. For John, it's you take a shot on a guy that has had starts in the past, but then he's also got the SPARP eligibility, so you're getting some reliever point.
If you get a long relief role and you just throw him in your starter spot, that when you have starters that aren't going, that's great. That's huge.
Not a bad give. Yeah, I agree. I think Troy is a good return. I think just when you look at him from a metrics standpoint, both physical and just his ability on the field, I think he fits kind of a lot of what people would like in a prospect. So certainly a good return there. Next one. Oh, actually, before I went, Alan just said I was torn between the Cal and John offers. But Tommy won by a hair. So there you go. Cal.
I tried to make it hard. But I get it. I totally get why I got it.
Just throw some more salt in the wound, right?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Miguel Vargas and a fourth, again, another trade with Allen here to the Mariners for two prospects that I certainly don't know a ton about.
I did a quick look-see.
Yeah, any thoughts on either of those two?
There are no homers combined between them.
Jesus, okay.
But they got some bags. They steal bags. So definitely some one-note hitters. But that was just like a quick glance at the counting stats. I haven't really dug into the tape.
So let's see. We got Bergola is 5'11", 165. Rodriguez is 6 foot but 152 pounds. Jesus.
Whoa.
I was 152 pounds in like sixth
grade. Eat a burger, my
we
boy.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. I mean, not a big name trade by any means there. But I mean, Josh getting a bat, multi-eligibility bat too, first, third, and left. That's important. So nice bench.
I was peeved when I saw that trade. I know that much. I was just like, come on, man, Josh is freaking gearing up. It's not good.
All right, next one. The one of the biggest for sure. We have a trade between the Royals and Orioles. Suarez, Swanson, Hayes, Quintana, Arise, and Kershaw all going to the Royals. And then I believe it's Muth, a second, $2 fab, and then Noah Schultz, shocker, going to Steve and his Orioles as well. So thoughts on that big one?
I think Steve's getting a little bit scary. He's freaking me out a little bit. Not liking it at all. He's getting fab. He's getting elite arm specs. I don't like this at all. But Royals, massive overhaul. Granted, I think they only keep a few of them, but I think I didn't really do like the tree off of this trade of what they acquire, what the pieces they give up, because they lose Swanson, they lose Kershaw and Suarez later on.
Yep.
I know I was part of the Swanson and Kershaw. I just don't know what happened with Suarez.
Yeah.
But overall, I think this is a win-win. It's another win-win. I'm waiting to have a harsh opinion on one of these. So far, the dump market's been pretty fair.
Yeah, I agree. It's this trade specifically, and I was in talks with Brendan a little bit on Schultz, but he was pretty committed to this trade for obvious reasons. Got a ton of good pieces because he's obviously one of the favorites, if not the favorite, this year. I think it's a great return for Schultz in terms of a team that is competing this year, right? And obviously he used that for other pieces later on down the line too. But then, God, if I'm Steve, I mean, Muth actually has a decent amount of helium behind him right now. There's some people out there who like him, even though stats-wise it's not like that great. I'm not sure why that is. I was looking at him earlier this year, and there were a decent amount of people who liked him. I don't really know why. But then obviously the Schultz return, I mean, just prototypical Steve prospect, right? We all know how much he loves that guy. So certainly not a surprise return there. And then the second too, even though it's going to most likely be a late second, not a big deal. Josh just said he traded Suarez to the Cubs, which is
Suarez to the Cubs. Okay.
And the Cubs,
I know we'll probably go over it later, but I just couldn't recall.
Yeah. He said that apparently the Suarez start that the Cubs got helped the Cubs beat the Mariners, apparently. So
even during the dump, I was looking at probables. I'm like, should I just make a deal for this week? Because I'm a little bit desperate right now.
Yeah.
I could use something here. I could use a little pick me up.
Yeah.
But sure enough, should have absolutely done that.
Right. Would have been the difference potentially. All right. So good, obviously good trade. Next up we got, speaking of Josh, trade between Josh, the Mariners and the Guardians, who Guardians were kind of a little more late into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Mark waited a little bit. My assumption would be that was intentional. That's usually a very Mark thing to do. Not good or bad, just very much his strategy. So Jock Peterson, IKF, Yastrzemski, and Chapman all going to the Mariners, along with a 3rd and 4th round pick. And then in return, the Guardians get Lowe, they get a 2nd round pick, and they get Dylan Moore. So obviously a full MLB trade, which honestly, in my opinion, seeing that initially when Mark sent his message out, it was actually really surprising to me that the first trade he makes was an all MLB player trade. Because as we know, Mark loves his picks, right? Mark loves his prospects and stuff. And to his credit, he does get a 2nd round pick here, so there is that. But was just very, very interesting to see MLB for MLB. And I think, given both of them have a chance to make the playoffs, certainly, I think it was a good balanced trade on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. A little disappointed Mark isn't just trying to get the entire draft. I was kind of hoping that at some point he was going to, and then see what happens from there.
At least a whole round,
but
right?
yeah, seeing the 2026 dump off is really disheartening. Did not like that at all. Maybe he's doing it for 2027. Who knows? Maybe it's just a perpetual cycle of trading picks and getting them back for next year and never using them. I have no idea what's happening with Mark's world. But yeah, this annoyingly works out for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess as a thought exercise for the dump. Now that you're a fellow dumper, what are your thoughts on waiting or being first in the door? Because there's a line of thought where, one, you get the most, the largest pool of owners that are needing something at the time, or you wait and they get a lot more desperate quickly.
Yeah.
So
it's a good question. I think what's interesting is it felt to me, and maybe it just feels different because I'm on the other side of it this year. I'm not sure. But we did talk about, and there was even some talk in the Discord about how we maybe thought people weren't willing to pay, especially the buyers weren't willing to kind of pay the necessary prices for some of the bigger names. And I think it was interesting to me because it was almost, as a seller, the more patient I was, the better off I was in finding a buyer that fit what I was looking for and found the right value, right? And I think that's personally important in that, just because you talk to 3, 4, 5 different owners and none of which end up sharing your same valuation, that doesn't mean that 5 days later you won't talk to some other random team who, maybe missed your post initially or just you didn't think would be a good trading partner, and all of a sudden they see it and they're like, all right, sure, yeah, I'll give you that. And I know I had a couple of trades that ended up going that route. So, I would say this year, in the past, I would say waiting sucked. I would say you missed out on a lot because people were so itching to pull the trigger, right?
Yep.
But for whatever reason this year, it didn't feel like, and even looking at the trades that are still happening, it doesn't feel like it's impacting valuation very much to wait. It seems like teams are willing to find the right match and find the right team. It's not just first come, first serve. And so that's part of the reason why I'm waiting on Kirby and a couple. I can't even remember who else I'm shopping. A couple other guys, because I've had plenty of talks surrounding them, but just nothing that has truly stood out in terms of the deal I've wanted to make. So that's kind of where I stand. How about you though? For kind of, I guess, quote unquote, being a buyer now, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like prices were different?
No, you got to get in ASAP. You got to get in ASAP. You have to have the widest pool available possible for fallbacks. If you don't want to pay a price, you got to fall back on something.
Yeah.
When you get stuck into a corner and you're left with the last first baseman, like if you're waiting out, like, sure, I'll wait till Alonso, Harper, and Torque all go, and then what? And then what are you gonna do? Yeah. Overpay for? I don't know. I'll just ride with Lamont Wade Jr. the whole time. Sounds good to me.
Who just got optioned, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, trust me, I saw that. I'm glad almost. Because, well, first of all, Encarnacion's coming up, so he's coming back off IL. So I'm like, get the hell out of here, Wade.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a buyer, happy that I got my foot in the door ASAP, because I don't think it would have been great. Which maybe that's not true, because you're seeing Dylan kind of clean up. You're trying to see him kind of clean house.
Yeah. But Sam made a couple of decent trades.
Yeah, Sam made a few decent trades. So the market's still there, but it's also like you have this weird convergence of like desperate buyers and desperate sellers that are both like, I got to get this off my hands, and I got to get this thing now.
Yeah.
So you're probably gonna find a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't know if that's just luck of the draw. no idea. But it seems to be that the market is still a little bit desperate in a way that it's like we got to get our last licks in now because it's going to be that once the dust settles, it's settled.
Well, and it's interesting too, as a from a buyer perspective, right? It would feel like to me now, if you were going to, pay or maybe slightly overpay for a player. Or overpay a price that you have on a player, now would be the time to do it, because then you have them, even if it's a 2025 contract, you at least have them for the rest of the year, right?
Yep.
If you wait 3, 4, 5 weeks and okay, maybe you pay a little bit less for that 2025 player now because you're not getting as much of them, but you didn't get as much of them as well, right? So it's like you're kind of choosing, am I willing to pay a little bit less for less production and maybe less wins, and ultimately maybe that doesn't get me into the playoffs? Or am I willing to just pay the little extra bit to ensure I get this player, helps me, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I'm of the latter thought because it's like then I'm giving it up for free.
Correct.
Like if it's not furthering my goal, then I'm just throwing away any future asset I give. Even if it's the fourth round pick,
Yeah.
something that's like fine, you can have it. Which by the way, I'm not saying you can just have my fourth round pick. By the way, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But something that you think that is expendable. No, I mean you're just throwing it in the garbage at that point if it's not doing what you need it to do. So yeah, absolutely agree on that.
Cool. All right, next up, another trade with you, you and Frank, Marlins Angels, second round pick to the Marlins and $1 for Tyler Anderson. Just something you like about Anderson specifically, or what was the rationale behind that?
I really just need a pitching as everyone else does, and Anderson's close to 15 a game. I'll absolutely take that over what I currently have, like Kyle Freeland. So in getting it for a second round pick it's not ideal. It's not the most cheap, but it's also 2027. I can take my time on that one. I'm not too worried about having to replenish the second round pick.
Yep.
So again, to further what I'm trying to do here, I'll pay that price. That's fine. Absolutely. With a dollar fab kicker, fine. Take it.
And I think that's smart, right? Because you're getting a guy who is potentially a multi-year guy for you. Mm-hmm. And if you ever need to use him down the line, if he's still a 14, 15 point per game guy, good chance you can probably get something like that back, right?
Yep.
Something similar. So,
yep.
All right, next, Estevez, one of the better closers in the league this year, went to Greg and the Padres. Good to see him making some moves. He sent actually a pretty steep price. I thought it was interesting to see Ford to the Mets, a second to the Mets, and a fourth to the Mets. Ford is a prospect I've been on for a while. Liked him. I actually think I may have drafted him initially and then ended up trading him to Matt maybe. But like Ford, and then obviously the second and fourth round picks should be decent. So a pretty good return for, again, a good reliever, but a reliever nonetheless.
It's a ton. It's a ton for I guess a solid. Is he closer role now? Is he? I'm pretty sure he's closer role.
Yep.
Like a solid closer as well at that.
Yes.
But again, you are paying a ton. I feel like for that. And it's probably something Greg needs. I haven't looked at his relievers, but it's kind of hard to get closer in this league without paying a ton, especially if you pay auction money. It's a ton. I know that much. So to get a midseason, great closer is hard.
Yep.
But a dear price, I think, for a second and a spec, and it's like I mean, Mariners pitching prospects. What even happens with those guys? I bet they don't become great or anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So yeah, it is. It might be a tough pill to swallow down the line. Maybe all these things become nothing. Maybe the Mets just do nothing with them.
Yep.
But it feels at this time like a decent amount to pay for a reliever.
Yeah, I agree. Next trade between you and I, actually, we got a couple of them. Savali and Bird go your way. Again, thankfully, Savali came back off injury, has been decent, and Bird has been shockingly a pretty good reliever this year. Just out of the bullpen for Colorado of all teams. And then Delgado and a fourth coming back my way. I know we both felt kind of the same way. It seemed pretty fair across the board, pretty simple.
Yeah, it's painless. I don't feel bad about this one. No. I feel bad about other ones, but not bad about this one.
Well, honestly, kind of similar to the Anderson thing, right? Where you can equate Delgado kind of to a second round pick, and so a second for another pitcher who's around that 14, 15 point per game. You're stacking those guys up, right? To where you get a good opportunity to have those points every week. So, I think that was a good one. Next one, a couple of big names being moved. Xander and Harrison Bader going to the Mariners for Trey Turner going to the Cubs. My assumption for this, more being a salary thing, because, I mean, obviously Xander and Trey are both pretty good. Let me pull up Josh here.
Well,
So,
I mean,
what are your thoughts?
I guess I'll inside baseball here because this deal's already been done. It's not going to change anything.
Yep.
Is that I was kind of like poking around on Turner, seeing
Okay.
what's going on, seeing where the market's at. I was doing it with a lot of big bats, even the ones I wasn't really buying. I was just like, hey, what's going on here? I'm trying to get word in the street. What's going on?
Yep.
So Turner was one of those. I'm like kind of like casually be like, hey, we can offer something here. I don't know if you want to do specs. You flip them later for MLB, whatever. Yep. But which is what he wanted initially. But this deal skips all of that.
Yep.
This deal goes direct to the source. I give up a great shortstop, and I get back to MLB pieces I need right now.
Yeah.
So it's exactly what he wanted in the long run, and he got to skip all those steps in the process of trying to flip things. So
and it's very
a good
interesting. So Turner's
for Josh, I mean,
yeah, Turner's on a 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So Frank getting obviously, and he's almost a 4-point per game player, versus Xander, who is only a 2.7 point per game player this year. A lot lower than I would have thought. He's on a $26 contract, so not terrible. And he's also
if you think you feel bad, imagine being the Padres.
I know
that's worse.
seriously. So yeah, that we'll see. I guess if he gets up over that 3.2, 3.3 points per game, then maybe we're sitting a little bit better. But man, if he sits at 2.7 for the year, my assumption has to be that Josh drops him because potentially get him cheaper next year. But
yeah.
Okay, so good one there. Next one, another big one. This between the Cubs and Royals. Rodon going to the Royals. So Brendan getting another big name pitcher. This is where he moved Suarez.
Wait a minute. This just clicked for me right now. Didn't he deal Rodon to get Judge to the Cubs earlier? Was that not like weeks ago that happened?
I don't remember. I can look. Give me.
I feel like this is probably just some weird deja vu stuff happening. I don't think maybe I'm totally off on that.
So Rodon's history. Houston traded Rodon to the Cubs, and Judge went to Houston. So it was Rodon, Sproat,
nice,
Soraka, and $5 for Mick Abel and Judge. That was back. Why did I forget that? That was literally on May. That was May 20th. Right now. Yeah, that was May 23rd. That's literally May 23rd.
This looks stupid.
Oh my god! So then, yeah, literally
a week later, he gets him back.
9 days later,
Devilman.
He trades Rodon to the Royals, and then he gets back Suarez and Arise. So he traded away Judge for essentially Judge and Abel for Rodon and Sproat, and then I know he traded Sproat later, so we'll talk about that. And then he trades Rodon for Suarez and Arise. And then $9 fab too, which is obviously a lot for Frank. Frank loves his fab. So,
definitely.
So yeah, good. I mean, good trade. Brendan gets obviously a really good starting pitcher. He's loaded. Yep. Frank gets some budget that he loves and some depth, so that's good too. Next one, I don't really need to talk about it, but Frank then turned. I remember this. He turned right around 4 minutes later.
All of it away.
Sends 8 of his $9 to Frank for a second and a third round pick. And now, what I will say.
You got $1 from Brendan, and it could have just gotten picks from Brendan.
Essentially, right? What I will say, and now looking at these picks, though, these picks are going to be better than the picks Brendan most likely would have sent him.
Oh, definitely.
A second round A's pick, you're thinking it's going to be a mid-second, a Toronto third round that'll probably be top half. So those are decent picks.
Wait, hold on. Whoa, A's are a mid-second. Are you disparaging the ALS right now?
Not at all. Not at all. Okay. Just saying that's
all right. I'll remember that for later.
Probably where it'll be. In the 15 to 20 range. Just saying. But obviously I think it's just funny that it's Frank getting $9 and then literally turning around 4 minutes later and spending 8 of it. So, but to Frank's credit too, though, he knows he needs to replenish his picks and minors and stuff. He's shared that with me multiple times, and so I know that's something he's been focusing on. So it's good for him. Mm-hmm. Next one, big in here. Real big one between you and Brendan. Got Erod, Swanson, Kershaw, and Leiter all going to you. Massive haul of players in general. And you sending Gore back. Curious what your thoughts are on that in terms of giving up Gore for depth. essentially.
I did not want to do it. It's not even just depth. It's I did not really want to do this deal because it's Gore. I mean, it's one of the best 2025s out there right now, if not the best 2025, I think.
Yep.
So it was hard, but the way I thought of it is I would, as an entire team, my current shortstop was, I think, Tyler Wade after Tim Anderson got DFA'd. So to go from those two morons to Dansby Swanson, who is, not a world beater, but 3.4 a game.
Yeah.
Love that. While also getting, maybe I get the kicker of Erod actually being close to what he was. If not, Kershaw probably isn't going to return to form, I imagine.
Yep.
But then I also get a reliever as well that I can get points from every day. Leiter's used pretty heavily in the Yankees bullpen. And it costs, I think I'm not taking that much of a hit through pitching because I just got, if this was done like a couple days ago, I would have said no.
Yep.
But I already have, I'm getting, Anderson and Savali, and with the pitchers I currently have, with Dollander, and I don't know if McGreevy's going to stay up. Like I have other pitchers that are coming back that I'm not going to be able to use all those starts. So while I am taking the hit on not being able to have Gore, I'm also now starting to hit my 7. My 7 starts a week every week, while also getting a starting shortstop who's performing well. So as a team, I think I improved greatly because I'm now hitting my starts, and I have a much stronger lineup. But it does suck to give up Gore, and it does suck to give to Brendan.
But I think that's smart on your end, right? I mean, you're very aware that if you're going to do this, I'm going to go for it thing, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have a full lineup across the board every day. Doesn't matter if you got one like really good guy and then a Tyler Wade at shortstop, right? Like that's not going to do it. There's no point in going for it if you're just going to have a shitty roster with a couple of high-end players, right?
Correct.
So I think that's a very, very smart thought process. Even if you don't or can't keep any of those 4, you weren't keeping Gore either, right? And
so Gore's gone.
Those 4 allow you to have a full lineup, get points. So I think that's smart. A couple of comments. Alan just said, quick trivia hit. Gore leads the MLB in strikeouts, which again, salt in the wound, but is what it is.
Totally. Alan's just freaking piling on me today.
And then I think Adam wants to make sure that that was a consent trade, considering you said you didn't want to do it, and he wanted to make sure that you gave Brendan consent to accept that.
Listen, we're not talking about Evan here, all right? We're not talking about some serial non-consensual trader. So,
speaking of just the best transition in the world. Speaking 100%. Of, we are moving to maybe the biggest trade that happened.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I would probably say it is in terms of.
I had an audible reaction by myself when I saw this deal. I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yep.
Yeah, it was nuts.
It's actually funny enough, and again, it doesn't matter anymore because deal's done. But I had possible trades with the Nationals for both Sikora and LaGrange, and so to see this happen, same for me. I had an audible reaction as well, but Nat's obviously going for it. It's so funny. I've looked at them multiple times, obviously over the past week, and to see their minors and picks just decimated is just weird to me. It just looks weird.
It's awesome,
right?
It's the only thing. It's the only hope we have.
True, and it's cool that they are. They went for it a little bit last year. Obviously, they're going for it big time this year. Obviously, the Judge and Alonso gets are great. Judge, obviously, I mean, he's at like what 5-something points a game or something.
It's a mythical season. I mean, it's we haven't seen it. It's just something we haven't seen.
But I think that's the easy side of this trade. I think the interesting part is honestly the return. Sikora, we all know, potentially the next big pitching prospect, right? I don't think he's been crowned that yet, but certainly there based on the
Quinn
stats.
Matthews is not dead, thank you. Jeez.
Correct. LaGrange, I think is a very interesting prospect.
Moving up quickly.
Moving up very quickly. I don't love that he's with the Yankees, but maybe they'll move him in a deal or something like that.
What have they produced? That's where it's like they have all these prospects, and then they get there. And Ben Rice probably the closest thing we have to something a success story right now.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a underwhelming. I'd say the Yankees is an underwhelming system to be a pitcher in.
Yeah.
So.
Which I was okay with that. But I mean McLean coming back I think is a great get. Mullins, I think for where he's at, I think he's on a first contract, so Evan has.
And I think McLean might be keepable as well.
I think
this is just a massive haul. Sure. Yeah.
$11 budget. Again, Evans, obviously a big prospect guy, has a lot of very big opinions on prospects and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure he loves that. And then Kyle Steven. Well, I mean, honestly, a bigger, maybe more up and coming kind of pitcher that more people are starting to know about in Toronto. So personally, I think it's a great return for two players that potentially won't be kept.
Yes.
Certainly probably would not have been kept by Evan. So I think that was really, really good on his end.
One thing I will say, I think Adam posed a question to Evan where he said, if you were to break the two up, would you have gotten more combined? Like, would you have gotten more? When you are pretty much telling an owner that, hey, I'm giving you a championship here, they'll pay this amount
100%
for it.
100%.
So I think I don't know. We'll never know the answer to that question, but I think Evan did just about as good as you could with what you had. So it's maybe if he broke it up, he would have gotten more. I can't imagine what more you could get, but for everything that Evan is and does,
right?
Yeah, I mean, you get Evan's
Picks,
pretty on top of it with specs, obviously.
Yeah.
So the fab alone is enough to replenish whatever he may need. And then you get these prospects to boot, plus controllable MLB talent.
Yep.
Dude, I mean,
return.
What else are you wanting?
It's a great return. And the fact that the Nationals had that to pay, too, is wild.
Yeah, 100%. Right? Yeah, the fact that it's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. It's not going to break our team.
Yeah,
that's okay.
That piece of it's wild as well. All right, next one between you and I, obviously one that we you actually.
Oh, my bad. I forgot I gave you Lamont Jr.
Yo, you're good. That's why I mentioned it earlier. So I was like, oh, great. I'll take Lamont because he'll be my starting right fielder. And then 2 days later, he's fucking doing it. So it's fine. He'll sign somewhere and get playing time. Just like Chris Taylor, he'll hit 187, and it is what it is.
Yeah, platoon him. It's 100%,
fine. Whatever. For me, it's actually this was of my trades that I made. This was obviously the biggest one, but also the one I wanted to just talk about a little bit in general because not surprisingly had plenty of teams ask about Schwarber, right, and what the price might be. You were the last team to actually inquire about him and work on it. I had a few different deals that I was closer on with some owners. But I think how we worked through it, and I told you this, at the end of the day, your ability to include Rodriguez into this deal was ultimately what got you Schwarber. Because Brasino I loved, and which is hilarious because it was more so your idea, so to speak, to where you would include Brasino but a little bit less, right? Essentially.
Yeah, because there was other specs in the deal. I'm like, that seems like a pretty.
Yep,
I was like, how about we do this with less, and then see what happens. Yeah, absolutely.
And it ended up working out because I was pretty high on Rodriguez, like him as a prospect. So you including that got it done. But I think it was just interesting that you kind of came in 23rd hour, and we were able to work it out within a few hours, essentially.
The main reason I was so late was mainly the confidence to actually think I could land a Schwarber.
Sure.
You're gonna have to pay a lot. You're probably not gonna get very far with it, and where is that gonna leave you? And I just mulled it over. It's like, well, then all these other deals I'm making are pretty much useless without Schwarber.
Yep.
Essentially, like without having a star bat, all the roster manipulation I'm doing is pointless. So we have to do something here. And believe it or not, I know people probably think about what I said earlier about how to pay less. This is less. This is the less version, by the way.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it at all, but that's it.
Yes.
It's something that had to be done, in my opinion, if I'm going to do this.
Well, after this was when you told me too. You're like, I need to stop having all these pieces and not doing anything with them. Right?
Correct. Because I continually do that, and then they amount to nothing.
Yep.
Like they'll come up, or something will happen, or they'll just suck out of nowhere. So like all these hype prospects I've had over the years, they just fizzle out, or they just do not, or something happens. So it's like, all right, fine. If Briseño goes on, like you had mentioned, becomes Joe Mauer or whatever, that's gonna probably suck, But there's so many prospects out there. I'll make it work.
Yeah.
As long as if I'm getting Schwarber now today. Yep. I'm getting that production today.
And you might get 2 playoff wins out of it this year because who knows what's going to happen with your team.
Yeah,
right?
maybe I get $3 out of it. Maybe I get $3.
Yeah,
that'd be great. But yeah, that was my thought process.
Yeah, that was a good one. And I think this is Jeff who was he said talking about the Nats. He said he loves to see the Nats going for it. They're in the bottom of the league recently and are now obviously an absolute favorite. I think most of us, if we picked right now, we're probably looking Nats Royals in terms of the World Series for sure.
Yes, I am. You'll see that later, but yes.
And then Kevin talked, because I know I kind of talked a little bit about the seller side, but he said from the seller side, it was very difficult to get controllable MLB talent for any one player, which I think is true. I think that's probably the hardest asset, right, to get in the league. Because people don't want to trade keepable MLB talent, right? Like that's not, and like I even think for Schwarber, some of my talks included having some sort of keepable MLB player coming back, and we just couldn't make it work. Not necessarily around that player, but the value that was placed on that one player was so high, right? And so it felt like even if that player wasn't necessarily the best player, right? It was just a random keepable player, a Tyler Anderson, so to speak, that player was given more value. And so then that kind of skewed things, I think, on the buyer side of things. So I think to Kevin's point, that makes a lot of sense. All right, next one. Not really a dump trade in any way, shape, or form, but Mikolas and Talon got swapped from the Cubs to the Mariners. The Rockies and Royals. So Fried gets moved to... Oh, go ahead.
Just real quick, I need Josh is lurking around. I know that, so I need the acquiring Michaelis explained to me, because I want Michaelis like gunned down by a firing squad, and you go acquire him. What is that about?
Right,
what
Josh,
is going on?
Josh, you tell us. We'll come back to this trade.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one, but I just need that question answered.
All right, Josh. Yeah, put your answer in there. Why? Why'd you go for Miles? All right, so Fried going to the Royals. Payne, Ferris, and a first going back to the Rockies. Obviously, Fried's been good, and pitched for the Yankees helps too. Thoughts on the return of Payne, Ferris, and the first? I kind of like all three.
Well, because if Fried is on a first, is he not? I don't think he's 2025. Is that he would be pretty high? He'd be probably the highest 2025 available if true.
He's actually only $28 on a first.
That's freaking sweet.
20 point per game pitch. He's having the best year of his career right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's solid return. It's a solid return, but I still think for a pitcher and how good he's been, you probably could have gotten more. I don't know how much more, and that's probably just me. I don't know what the market's like for pitcher. I really don't, because it's a lot of these guys. They're not isolated cases.
Yep.
And we don't have a lot of first pitchers. We don't have a lot of keepable pitchers that are really good being traded. So I have no idea where the market's at on that.
Yeah,
versus like the hitters that are expiring, we know where that's at. There's not a lot of data for guys like this getting traded.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really happen.
I try to equate it to some of the trades some of the trade talks I've had about Kirby, specifically, and like what that return would look like versus a Fried return. So it's interesting to kind of just look at it that way, because obviously, I mean, Kirby's $10, so he's even much more keepable than Fried is, and he's on I think he's got 3 more years or something like that on his contract. So
right.
But yeah, I think interesting, but good, certainly good for both sides in terms of what they're trying to do. Another Royals trade, in division trade. Pagan and a second goes to the Royals for Padilla and a second. Not a whole lot, I don't think, to necessarily talk about. They're essentially swapping seconds and just a relief guy for Brendan. Next one, though, another big one. This was one that John and I actually were in very deep talks about a Skeens trade.
Man,
I ended up. It was on me. I ended up not being willing to pay kind of an extra price to
I wish I freaking knew that because best friend Kevin and I were kind of chatting it up a little bit. He didn't really tell me what was going on, like Toy was going on, but like that he was like where he was at in dealing.
Yeah.
I wish I could have had you on the line and goading both of you, like, come on, man, you gotta pay, come on, you gotta do it, you gotta get Skeens. That's what I was trying to do to Kevin. I'm like, dude, no matter who you give up, at the end of the day, all these prospects are not going to be Paul Skeens. That is the kicker right there. Not a single one of them will amount to it. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly paid off. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think him, to me, and Kevin and I talked a little bit about it after I told him that I was kind of the other team in on it. I thought he actually did a really good job. He got in trading away Neto. he essentially said that in his conversation with John, he was like, if Neto's going to go away, like I need to have a shortstop back because I don't have a shortstop. And so him getting Pena included is wild to me. I think that makes the Skeens side of the trade so good for Kevin. My trade was just for Skeens. There was no other value coming back to me in any capacity. So the fact that he got Pena and then Bonnemer as well.
So you think it may have been a worse deal for John?
Not
like
necessarily.
If he had done it with you,
not necessarily worse, because him getting Acuna, and Neto, I think is probably a better, certainly MLB.
I guess
return.
That's fair. Maybe if you had Schwarber, it would have been.
The MLB return going to John is certainly better. But it depends on your valuation of
He's on a first. I forget that. Sorry, I just feel like he's a stud. He's probably on an expiring contract, but no, he's on a first.
I think he's like 40 on a first, so theoretically keepable, I guess.
Yeah,
the Pratt, Festa, Baldwin, Cameron return, I think is obviously strong for John. He gets pieces out of it. I was surprised that John went the more MLB route for Skeens. Because that was not our conversation was not really surrounding that, and so that may have been kind of what swayed him ultimately, was he was able to get more of these closer ETA type of players. So just kind of it was very interesting. Obviously, big trade. Skeens going to Kevin. He's happy to have him, and his team looks good. Obviously, with him on it, so can't
getting skewed. I mean, you got to compete with the Yankees as well in that division. Who already have 3 elite starters.
Correct.
So having something to boot with it, something to compete with, that's also pretty huge.
Yeah, better than nothing. Alan said, okay, and then Josh just responded too. So Alan said, market for Fried was pretty quiet outside of the Royals. Not dead, but pretty quiet, and he's also had crickets on Bailey Ober. And I actually,
that's really surprising.
When I looked to
give it to me, I'll give you like a 3rd round pick. It's better than 0.
It's probably why it's quiet, right? And I look at it, and so like Ober, he's $29 on a first, and only 13.5 a game.
You're not keeping it, but it's also like if you have the salary to kind of just like
totally, and I think
to eat it.
I think maybe that, again, I have no clue what the conversations have been like for Ober and Allen. Maybe Allen's looking because it's a starting pitcher. This is points wise, I think this is like the worst of his career. So maybe the return is going to be a little bit lower. That could be why, or maybe his asking price is a little too high. I don't know, but that could be potentially why. Kevin said, if only there were more prospects in this deal. Oh, so Kevin, I guess, wanted more prospects in the Skeens deal. I'm assuming that's what he's going for. And then Josh said, okay, about the trade, so the Mikolas Talent trade was a part of a previous trade I made with the Cubs.
Okay, that makes sense.
I refused to give him Talent to play against me, so we waited until locks. Talent is a $23 2026 bad contract. I hate bad contracts. That's hilarious.
I get that. Tyon is a rough contract for 2026.
That's hilarious.
But I would have taken a shoe over freaking Miles Mikolas. I get it though. I understand. That's fair.
Now we have some executive committee drama going on, because I'm assuming this is Sam, because it's total franchise experience. But Sam said Allen is lying. I told him I wanted Fried and Ober. He left me on red because he loves Brendan.
Oh, this rocks, man. We should do more morning pods. It just gets a little spicy in here.
This is crazy. I love it. Okay, we'll move on to Brendan and a trade between Brendan and I. This is actually so I sent him Edman. He sent me a 2nd and 3rd, and it was hilarious because this is in the midst of Brendan and I talking about a few different trades, and he hadn't really ever talked to me about Edman for the most part. He had maybe kind of mentioned